Okay, so what we're doing here is we're going to do a quick recap of the 4.3 worksheet. If you watched Matt's yesterday and you understood it, then you can bypass this video and worry about the 4.3. But I did promise you guys that I would utilize YouTube for those of you who were struggling to use Matt's. So if you are able to get on Matt's, do it, please. They're great resources. Okay, so first of all, what we did is we taking a circle, we are looking at a ray that is passing through, and that's BC. So there is our BC passing through. Here is our tangent. So we have tangent CD. And so what we are going to do is we want to find the measure of arc BC. So we want to find that measure of arc BC, and that is our x that is unknown. So then we go to this step where if we draw auxiliary lines, which are lines we use to aid us in math to prove things, and so we're drawing auxiliary lines AB and AC, and what we are doing is creating an isosceles triangle. Now, not only are we creating an isosceles triangle, if you will notice, we are creating also a central angle that will has the intercepted arc BC, which is the arc in question here. So we have created this isosceles triangle. So if we know that x up here is a certain number of degrees, then we know whatever is left over is going to go to the two base angles. So your two base angles of an isosceles triangle are congruent. So what we're going to do is just say, okay, whatever x is, we will subtract from 180 and divide by 2. So like for instance, if my central angle x right here were 100, we would say 180 minus 100, which is 80, and that means we have 80 degrees to disperse between angle ABC and angle ACB. So we would say 80 divided by 2, and angle B and angle C would both be 40 in this case. Okay, but we don't know what that is, but this is how we can determine how to go about getting these angles. So that brings us to our next step, that we have to remember that AC is going to be perpendicular at the point of tangency. So we know here that this angle is creating two 90-degree angles, so it's perpendicular. So we can say that the measure of angle DCB right here is going to be equal, or I'm sorry, DCB and ACB must sum 90 degrees. So we can find DCB by saying 90 minus 180 minus x divided by 2, because this right here is one of the angles of our isosceles triangles. But really, to make this all simple, we can just say the measure of angles DCB is x divided by 2, quite simply. So basically, that leads us to this statement, which says the measure of an angle formed by a tangent and a chord drawn to the point of tangency is 1/2 the measure of the intercepted arc. Now, I'm going to tell you, this is just like the inscribed angle, so it's kind of easy to remember this. Because if you remember, the inscribed angle of a circle is equal to 1/2 of its intercepted arc. Well, the same is true of a tangent and a line here. So we see here that we have, let me erase this up. Okay, it says here, find the most appropriate value for x in each of the diagrams below. Assume CE is tangent to the circle. So here we see that our arc, our intercepted arc here is 214 degrees. So we just take 214 divided by 2 and it equals 107. If we go to number 2, we see here up here that this from here to here is 140 degrees. So all we have to do is take 360 and subtract 140, and we get the measure of this arc as 220, and then we take half of that to get the x, which is equal to 110 degrees. And then lastly, we see that first of all, we want to find the measure of this intercepted arc. So first we're going to take the angle that is being formed by a tangent and a line. okay, in our circle, and we're going to double that 68, and that will become 136 degrees. That's your first step. Then your second step is to take 360 and subtract that 136, and then we get our value of x, which is 224 degrees. So that would be our answer for that. So then what you had to do was go through and find these other angles for 4, 5, and 6. So if you have any questions, this is on your answer key, which is attached to Digital Day 1. So if you have any questions, just let me know.